Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to Citywide Blackout, your home for the best creators from around the world. I'm your host, Max Bone. And joining me now, my next guest, well, he does a lot. He's a musician, he's a producer, he's an actor, he's an entrepreneur, he's a former model, he's a published author. Holy God. And now I feel like I've accomplished nothing of value because he's just done so much and he's still in his 20s. Hollis Morrisette joins me. Hollis, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. This is such a great honor.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, me too. Me too. All right. So why don't we begin with just a look at all the different things you do? You act, you have published your own children's book, you have your own clothing boutique, you have been producing music for the past few years. How do you balance everything?
I don't know. I've always been a person who I like to stay busy. And so when I stay busy, I guess I don't really feel the burnout until maybe I sit down. But I've always had these big dreams since I was a child. I've said this many times in past interviews or in other magazine features I've had that, when I was 5, I was one of those kids where I knew exactly what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And at 5 years old, I told my parents I'm moving to Los Angeles. I'm moving to LA. I knew exactly there was nothing that was going to stop me, nothing that was going to convince me otherwise. And I don't know, I just kept going. I've always, I've sang since I was a child. I remember being in a little group and, got into acting at 8, and then I became a model at 16. And, when I was 13, I always wanted to be Mr. United States. And then a few years ago, I made that come true by, being a national pageant title holder. So I've just been doing that and just juggling it all. I think life is just too short, so I have to keep going because, you never know. But I always like to keep going. I don't like to be lazy.
I get you, man. I imagine though when you told your folks at age 5 I'm moving to LA, they're probably like, "Oh, sure, you're 5, whatever." And then fast forward, like, "Oh, you really did it! Wow." When you began pursuing, acting and music and modeling, did you get a lot of support from the family?
Not really. I think just because I come from a conservative family, they're the type to, go to school and then go to college immediately after, and then go get your master's degree right after, but own a home while you're getting your master's degree, starting your family, all that kind of stuff. And the very traditional conservative type of lifestyle. And I just felt like I was always different since the day I was born. Like I've never felt to be confided in that way. I've always known that there was something in me, whether it was just my talents or my personality. So I was like, no, I have to make my own way, create my own life.
I get you. All right. But I did read that you do have a BA in theater and psychology from JCSU in Charlotte, North Carolina. What led you to go to college?
I did it to make my family happy. I will say that it was never my intention to go to college right after high school. I'm not saying that I never wanted to go to college, but maybe when I wanted to was more the route that I wanted to go. But I think I just did it right after high school. And honestly, school came pretty I was pretty good with school. I graduated high school with honors. I graduated early. And then in college, I graduated a year early and I graduated magna cum laude, however you want to say it. But even though that came easy to me, it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. But I don't fully regret it because while I was in college, that's when I ended up getting on vice principals on HBO. So I look at it like, well, maybe if I hadn't gone down that road, then I wouldn't have gotten on HBO.
I would say it's worth it then, actually. It's definitely worth it. So,
Yeah.
was being on Vice Principals like your first big break?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was unexpected. I'll never forget. I had done a lot of traveling that year and I had signed with at the time, my new agent. And they signed, like I remember going in there and we had this meeting and then they signed me the very next day. And then I want to say maybe a month to a month and a half later, I had my first big audition. I didn't know what the show was, and I just knew it was on HBO. And I will say that, they're like today with COVID, how they have remote auditions. Well, obviously back then when I did the show, we it came out in 2016, but we filmed it in 2015, a whole year earlier. So obviously COVID didn't exist, but I was doing a remote audition because it was being filmed in a different state. And I remember one of the actors who was signed to my agency as well, she was, always booking things, and she was very good and very talented. So she was like, well, let me help you with your audition. So I did it at her house. She gave it to my agent. He sent it in. Now, obviously, I didn't think anything of it because I'm like, oh, it would be nice to have, gotten it to, a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks had gone by, hadn't heard anything. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of bummed, but it was your very first audition. Well, then my agent is blowing my phone up and he's like, they want you and they're bringing you out there to Charleston, South Carolina. And I was like, oh, but don't they want a second audition? They said no. So I was like, oh my gosh, my very first audition, they did not do a callback. They just said, no, get out here now.
Wow.
And they brought me up here, and the rest is history.
Very cool. Now, I've not seen that show. What's it about?
So Vice Principals, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Danny McBride from Eastbound and Down, and he's done a number of other things as well. Vice Principals, so obviously it's about he's the vice principal to a school, and there are several other colleagues that are all trying to compete to be the next principal. But there's a woman who gets hired on, and she's like a don't take no crap kind of person. So, but they'll do anything to destroy her character. Like they'll try and set someone's house on fire. They'll try and lie about someone sleeping with another teacher or something. But it's about the unprofessionalism of the staff mixed with the rudeness and obviously cliche of high school students who can't seem to be respectful, going through their puberty and their hormones and everything. And it's just a funny show, but they all bring their personal emotions into a professional setting. So you just never know what you're going to get.
Nice. And what was your role in this?
So I was my character's name was Demetrius Todd, and I was a pretty important guest star to the show. And my character was very snobby, very quick-witted, very you can't talk to me this kind of way kind of person. I guess my character was on a high horse and he needed to come back down to earth.
Ah, cool. Now, being on an HBO show, I'm sure that was like a huge milestone for you. How do you think that kind of influenced you in terms of what you did afterwards?
I think it influenced me because once you accomplish that, you realize, even though I believe in myself, it's always nice to see, what you're planting actually grows. And so once I made that accomplishment, I'm like, well, obviously I'm doing something right. Let's keep it going. How can I grow from here to make my dreams continue to come true, but stay on track and not really fall off behind and not be that person who I don't want to be that person who says, oh, I remember once I was on HBO, but then did nothing afterwards. And then I don't want to have to go through life saying, oh, but you're so talented, or someone to say, oh, you're so talented. Why did you stop? So I just have to keep going. I think that's what pushed me because I made that great accomplishment. And I'm like, well, what else is next?
Well, now I'm sure that the pandemic changed a lot of plans for you in terms of things you were looking to do. But have you been able to get back into acting and back into doing roles?
Yeah. So my team, I have my manager and my agent, agents. And I mean, I audition all the time, honestly. And I will be honest with you, even though things shut down, my auditioning never really stopped. And when I won Mr. United States, it was actually during 2020. So I still had to do my photo shoots. I still had to do my public interviews. I was still servicing, holding my title and doing my reign and everything. So I think just with that, I knew for a fact, I said, I'm not going to take this opportunity to be locked in my house that's in my name. And I'm not going to be told, just to stay at home and watch TV. No, I'm going to do something with these doors that are closed, which is why we had the power of social media. So I was able to do a whole lot because at that time, you had no reason but to focus on social media. Nobody was interacting with anyone. So I was very thankful for that. And I still am.
Cool. So, how are you able to utilize social media to kind of keep yourself out there and keep busy?
Oh gosh, I think TikTok is a great way. That's a little addicting. Sometimes I find myself scrolling a bit too much. Obviously, Instagram and Twitter. Twitter, I don't know what's going on with Twitter, but Twitter is Twitter. And you see things every day. But I feel like there's always a rush of information everywhere. I'm not really on Facebook. So that's probably the only type of social media that I don't really use, except for I don't use Snapchat anymore either. But Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and TikTok.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like you have this, like you mentioned before, the very stay busy mindset. You want to keep doing stuff. You're always active. Where do you think you get that?
To stay active and
Yeah.
always. Oh, I think it's just something that was naturally in me.
Hmm.
You know, I've been inspired by watching people who have, opened doors for me. And I've just always seen, obviously, you don't see behind the scenes, but you keep seeing them constantly coming out with another movie or constantly another show or another song or another album. And I'm like, dang, give me time to catch up. But then also, I'm like, I respect that. You want to stay busy. I think I just, being young, like I just don't, you never know. So as long as my legs work, my arms work, my brain works, I think I'm just going to keep going.
I like that.
This is like a lazy day, but I don't really have those too often. I like to just keep going because I like to have something to talk about.
I like that. All right. So let us talk about being a former Mr. United States pageant title holder. That's really amazing because I know that the competition is obviously huge. How did you get involved with the competition, and kind of how did it feel to get this title?
I felt great. But I will say, like I said before, this was a dream of mine when I was 13 years old. I've always said that this is what I want to do. And for those who don't really know what that is, if people have heard of like Miss USA, it's the male version, it's the brother organization to that pageantry. And, so you do your community service, you have your evening wear, where, obviously we wear tux. And, you have like your onstage question, you're in front of all these judges, you do your talent, everything you see, we pretty much have done. And then you do your community service and all that. Now, how I came about it, I remember I had to send in an audition tape and I had to compete for my state title at first. And at the time, because I live in LA and it's been my home for many years, I was going to be Mr. California, United States, but someone had already won that title. So I said, well, I'll compete, even though I live in LA, I'll compete as my former home state. So I competed and then I won Mr. Michigan, United States. So then I had my state title. But then they were saying, okay, so now it's time to see if you want to go further. Do you want to compete nationally? And I said, yes. So then, you send in your audition tape and everything. And then that's when I found out that I was accepted into the organization. And then I was to compete for 16 weeks for Mr. United States.
One of the things I'm really curious about is people who do this. What kind of doors does it open? Because obviously you can't keep like doing this forever.
Pageantry, yeah. I think it's something that will always be talked about, especially, being a male who's a pageant title holder. It's not that many of us. The doors that it open, I think, first of all, it already is another way of taking rarity and looking at how unique a person is. So I think it has opened up a lot of doors in terms of magazine features, public interviews. It has made me stand out because in this business, people are always wanting to know how you can stand out, how dedicated are you, and how determined are you? There's so much talent, but I feel like a lot of people don't really focus on that. They do put focus on how talented you are, but there are a lot of talented people out there, but if you're not dedicated, you're not determined, you don't keep focus, I think that's what people mostly focus on. So it's helped with those in ways like that to open up doors for me.
Okay. I want to ask next about living in LA. Why there? Why not like New York City or maybe Austin, Texas or Boston? These are all pretty strong epicenters for the arts and for people who want to pursue artistic careers.
Well, again, at 5, I knew I was moving to LA. It's a different world here. I like you can get so much. You can get the beach, you can get the desert, you can get the mountains with snow. Um, you know, I will say I respect the hometown that I was born in, but I've always felt at a young age that I just was not connected to the East Coast. I've always felt like a West Coaster at heart. Um, and I just never really, I like to visit the East Coast. I've traveled many places around the world, not just domestically, but internationally, but I've never really felt connected. And I love visiting New York. I think it's a great place. Boston is nice. Chicago is nice, but it's not livable for me.
I get you. Yeah.
It feels
Personally,
very,
I've been to New York City a couple times, and I definitely like to go there. Could I live there? Maybe not so much.
yeah, like I said, it's I feel very closed in
Mm,
I feel like I'm boxed in on the East Coast, and I don't like that. I don't like to be boxed in, or confided. But New York is very cutthroat. And I know LA can be as well, but I don't know. I just feel like if you don't walk 25 miles an hour in New York, then you're gonna get shoved out the way. If you say good morning, they're like, shut the F up, like, oh my gosh, I don't know. You never know what you're gonna get in LA. People get hit by cars all the time.
That's very accurate, actually. That's very, very accurate. So I'm curious as to what your early experiences living in LA were like.
They were tough. I think they were very tough because I didn't know anyone. So I didn't have the luxury that a lot of people have when they either move here with someone or they easily connect with people. So I didn't have anyone to kind of show me around. I had to figure it out myself. There was a lot of lonely times as well, but I got through it. And I think I just kept focused. And I think that's another thing that kept me focused was I didn't know anyone. So all I had to do was take every audition that I had, every opportunity, every photo shoot I could do, because I'm like, well, I don't have anyone to hang out with. So let me just keep busy.
Mm. It sounds like you weren't the type to kind of walk in there with these like, starstruck dreams of, oh yeah, this is LA. I'm gonna make it. My, star on the Walk of Fame and all that stuff.
No, I saw LA as a bigger opportunity. Obviously, it's the place where my dreams have been coming true and will continue to come true. And it's a place where obviously, my success has grown, but I saw it more than just my career. It's also a place where I am building my home, where I'm, where when the time is right, starting my family. This is like a place that I don't play around with. I think a lot of people, they move for the wrong reasons. And I moved for the right reasons, just because I'm like, I'm not here to play around. This is my career, my life. So I tied all that in one. I didn't look at it as, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on the red carpet. And that's fun and all. I've done that, but it's not like the greatest thing ever. That's not the reason why I moved here.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not just a place for you to grow your career. It's also for you to really find who you are as a person.
It definitely is. You run into a lot of stuff here. But it's a great place. But there are a lot of distractions as well. That's just that. When it's time for me to go, I think my exit song will be my music.
Oh, geez. Well, hopefully that's not enough for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting way to go out. All right. All right. I was really curious about writing because on top of everything else, you were also a published author. You have a book out called We Are Enough Friend. And this is all about a young man named Julian, a confident yet humble friend who takes the reader on a fun journey. What led you into writing books?
When I was a child, there was this book that my mom would read to me every morning before school. I don't remember the name of the author, but it was this book called Getting Dressed. And from there, obviously in elementary school, how you have those book fairs and you can like buy books and stuff, and then like you collect books. And so I had one of those big, I forgot what it was called. I don't know if it was called Tyson or Tonka or something. It was one of those big blue bins with a top. And I used to have it filled with books. And I used to read those books all the time. And I just felt like I really wanted to write a book one day. So I remember when it was 2020, like around Thanksgiving, I came up with this idea of writing a children's book because I was writing several other books at the time, but they're not published. And when I thought about it, I said, you know what, let's do a children's book first, because here we are in 2020. These kids were robbed of their summer, everything. So so I didn't want children to feel like they were going down a dark road. So I thought about the children first. And when I created Julian, I wanted him to send a message that, kids or people of all ages are more than enough. They're definitely worthy, to be loved and to give love and to, stand their ground. They're not to be bullied, but, keep the peace as well.
Cool. All right. So you have so much happening here. I'm curious, is one of these things a priority for you, or is it just everything all at once?
I try to make one thing a priority, but I think because my brain is just like everywhere, I don't know. I just do this, spend like an hour or two on this, move on to the next thing, start writing on that. I'm always filling my day with a bunch of stuff, and it might be great, but also sometimes it kind of sparks up my anxiety because I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed and everything. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, I started all these things today, but now I feel like I have to finish them all today instead of just having one main thing and having a deadline for the day or for the week. But then you get overwhelmed. So at the moment, I'm just kind of juggling everything at once. Probably not the best thing to do.
Yeah, I can see it being a little bit overwhelming, but you mentioned you also have a team that you work with. How does that help you?
A lot, because when I first started, I was doing it all by myself. Yeah. And then not to mention when you were doing all of that by yourself, all your projects, but then you got to find time to do public interviews. And then you got to find time to have time for yourself. And then I have a dog, and then I have to find time to give it attention, and then I have to find time to maintain my social media. So I really felt burnt out because I'm like, everything to me right now is hitting at once. And I think when you have an idea in your mind, you always go to a place where you feel like, how can I say it? You know how you have like an idea in your mind, but it sounds good or it looks good that you're going to finish X, Y, and Z. But then when it comes to reality, you have different obstacles or you have different things that come in your way, come in the way. And then you feel overwhelmed and you're like, oh, well, I can't finish this project today. I have to finish it tomorrow. Life happens. So that's why I kind of started with a team. Oh, another reason why is I remember when I was in my reign for Miss United States, the director at the time, he recognized how overwhelmed I was. And he actually pushed me and he said, you need to get a team because you're really starting to pick up with a lot of stuff and you can't do it all alone. You need a team. And if you want to succeed, you have to have people who stand, by you.
Did that ever occur to you back in the day, like when you got to LA, like, okay, I'm here, I'm going to find my team?
No, the only team I think I thought about was like an agent and manager, but I never thought about an assistant or a publicist or a stylist or anything like that. Anyone that can be on your team, a lawyer. I didn't think about all those things, but then again, I didn't think like that. I just thought career, life, living your life. Not a lot of people in their 20s think about stuff like that. Like, oh, I need to get a legal team. I need to get this. I need to get that.
Yeah, but I think that's what it is, though. Like the more you do and the bigger you become, you need that structure. You need like, okay, someone to help me with my interviews. Someone, like you said, the legal person. You probably have some kind of a financial planner or something like that, and everything else. There's so many different like moving parts to what you do, and it's a whole industry, really.
It is. And it's a whole different world because, like I said, you don't expect to have all those different things, and I didn't think about them. But I mean, it's great. So especially when you have the right people, because obviously some people have teams, but they're just not the right people. And I've had that. I've had that in the past. In the past where I just didn't have the right kind of people, and I just felt like they were there, and I'm like, oh, I really could just. I did a lot more work by myself than having you around. I'm doing it all by myself still anyway. You're just here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like you definitely don't want to have that person who's just sort of filling a spot, but you realize, wait, why are you around exactly? What are you bringing to the table?
Yeah. I've had a lot of those.
How did you find your current team?
Just really taking my time, looking at people's work, just kind of scouting, which I didn't do in the past. I just went based off of what people said and what sounded good. And I was like, oh, okay. And then obviously throughout experience, you have to learn. You can't go based off of what people say. They have to bring receipts. So I need to see their work. So I took my time, and then I also I don't want to say by force, but by strong request from my director at the time, from Miss United States, telling me you really need a team. I think that's what helped me find the right team as well, because, I didn't want to feel that burnout again, which, I mean, you're going to still feel burnout, but I didn't want to feel it in the way I did in the past. And I really wanted someone trustworthy. So I'm like, I have to see your work. I need to see what you've done. I need to see how you handle yourself, not just on paper, but in person.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. All right. So, Hollis, what is next for you? What's your next on your to-do list for the year?
Well, like I said, I'm in the studio. So I'm working on a lot of things right now. I have some other things that will be announced soon. I do have things planned out, but I can't really say what it is for the remainder of the year, because opportunities are always there. So I don't have my planner that far out, but I can just say expect great things and exciting things. But I think right now the most exciting thing is the reason why I'm in the studio, and I'm really, really excited about this project.
Excellent. Well, folks, if you want to know what those things are, you go to Hollis Morrisette, same spelling as the singer.com. You'll find everything there. Follow their socials, Instagram, the many, many things that we've been talking about here. Follow them all, interact, and you'll be the first ones to know when all this new stuff drops. So, Hollis, thank you again. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. I know I'm a talker.
Hey, it's a good thing.
Hi, this is singer Kate Eppers, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout.
And that brings this episode to a close. Thanks to everyone for listening, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook at Citywide Blackout and Twitter and Instagram at CitywideMax. You can reach me at citywidemax@yahoo.com to suggest a guest or submit music for the Blackout Collection playlist. You can find this show wherever you check out your favorite podcasts, and new episodes are aired every Saturday at 10 p.m. EST on Boston Free Radio. That's all for now, and I'll see you next time.
Tried to break me down, but it didn't work. You were so disrespectful. I didn't know that was you. You tried to bring me down, but it didn't work. Tried to waste my time, I can't hang.